Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's show, we just want to take a moment to extend our just heartfelt sadness out to the Graz community out there in Austria. The current count for people who have died in the mass shooting is 10. By the time you listen to this podcast, that number might be higher based on the folks who are in the hospital. But our hearts just go out to the families, to the victims, obviously, and we just hope that Austria is able to, put some things in place to ensure that this doesn't happen moving forward. Because thoughts and prayers can only go so far. But again, we feel so bad. We know as Americans what it's like. It's not good for any community anywhere in the world. And so again, our hearts here at Fourth Down Fiasco go out to the Graz community out there in Austria.
Fires, Mike Sims Walker, knocked down.
Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
In trouble, he's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40, gets away again.
Jackson takes it himself. Look at him turn back and forth. Oh! He broke his ankles.
I have never seen this before in my life.
Still looking, firing, near corner. It's caught.
Denver, unbelievable.
Welcome to the Fourth Down Fiasco.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourth Down Fiasco, your go-to podcast for all things football, brought to you by BetStamp. BetStamp is the sportsbookie of all sportsbookies, where they have everything in one place just for you. You can check them out at signupexpert.com/fiasco. Place a $10 bet. Let us know how it goes. If you're into the European League of Football, you can check out Bet365, which is through that link I just told you about. And you can definitely put some money down on the European League of Football, which is what we, or rather I should say I, am going to be talking about today. No Danny and Tanner. Tanner is pulling super long hours as he does as a social worker, so we appreciate what he does and his contributions to society, just being a great human being just in general. And then Danny is a little bit jet lagged because he got to go have fun in Europe for 2 weeks straight. He did get to go to some of the ELF games, which was pretty dope. He went to the Nordic Storm Rhein-Fire game this past weekend, as well as I believe it was Vienna Paris. But yeah, that was this past week as well. He went to a Vienna game too. So with that, I'm going to dive into the pod. It's going to be just our normal show order. I'm going to go through and just kind of give some notes about this past week's slate of games, week 9 of the European League of Football, as well as going through our awards. We do have some controversy for one of the award winners, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. And then I will follow up with pick'ems at the end. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to just take a moment. If you could turn up the volume in your headphones or on your speaker real quick. Y'all hear that? That is the sound of Riley Hennessy smoking on that Galaxy pack. Yes, I had to say it. The man had 7 total touchdowns. Welcome to the party, Riley Hennessy. We are so glad to see you in the form that we thought that we were going to see you earlier in the season. Again, I've said before on this pod, it has felt like Stuttgart's been holding back, especially offensively. I feel like we're not really getting the full game plan from them. But this past weekend, when they took on the Frankfurt Galaxy, it was, look, my man Riley Hennessy, you can call him Big Cognac. That's what me and Jamal Clay call him, Big Cognac. He can make your secondary look drunk in an instant. So, man, the jokes just write themselves, truly. But yeah, this past week's slate of games, I'll actually kind of take a step back now that I've had my fun here and talk about week 9 as a whole. A lot of close games. It was a fun week of football. Aside from the Little League teams that we allow into the European League of Football, Cologne and Farivar, I'm looking at you. A lot of really close games. Looking at the Munich Ravens, Helvetic Mercenaries, Helvetic at least kept it close, somewhat competitive at least. only lost by 2 touchdowns. Stuttgart beat Frankfurt in a shootout 54-39. Then there's the Fehérvár Madrid game 49-22. Then we have Vienna and Paris, which was a phenomenal game. Vienna takes that one at home 40-33. Berlin, whooped up on Cologne. Again, we're talking about the little league teams that we allow to play with the big boys. But Berlin wins that game 45-2. Rhein-Fire falls short of their revenge game against their former quarterback, Jadrian Clark. They lose in Copenhagen, final score being 25-24 in favor of the Nordic Storm. And then the Wroclaw Panthers, making a wild comeback after Prague made a wild comeback and ended up beating the Lions 41-37. So I'm going to just give some high-level overview of these games real fast. So starting off with the Munich Ravens, Helvetic Mercenaries. Again, Helvetic, they had some roster turnover. They had some new signings. I think given where they're at as a franchise right now, they played about as good as they could have. Again, still scoring 20 points. Held Munich, which, is a very high-powered offense, held Munich to 34, which, for some of these more competitive teams is not that great. But for Helvetic, I thought that this was going to be like a 55-6 type of affair. And so Helvetic, at least showed up, made things competitive. They did score a touchdown in garbage time to make it 34-20, but we're going to ignore that. We're just going to say that they made it competitive. Okay. Russell Tabor. We've been on Tabor time the past few weeks. Russell Tabor did not have his best game. And it's funny because me and the insiders were all joking about how, talking about, Tabor this, Tabor that. Tabor didn't play great. Tabor still had 3 total touchdowns. Let's just put that out there. Tabor still scored 3 tuds and still won handily in this game with the Munich Ravens. But 58 passing yards total, a 3.87 average, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, did take a sack, did have 2 rushing touchdowns, some short ones, some kind of freebies almost. And I believe he also had a fumble as well. So, for those of y'all who did take the time to read my midseason MVP list, I had Russell Tabor on that list, as y'all know, and a big reason why I couldn't make him, one of the highest, if not the highest on my list for MVP is the turnovers. And again, it hasn't really bit Munich in the ass yet. So, hey, winning is winning is winning. He could throw 5 interceptions, and if they still win, they still win. They're 7-1 right now. But I am just a proponent of the more turnovers you have, the more you open yourself up to lose. It's just, that's a fact in this game. If you take care of the ball, you're more likely to win a game. If you don't take care of the ball, you're more likely to lose. So definitely needs to clean that up. Not his best game, but they come away with the dub. Moving on to Stuttgart against Frankfurt. And I think I misspoke earlier. This game was actually in Frankfurt, not in Stuttgart. So forgive me for that. But my boy Riley Hennessy balled out. 7 total touchdowns, 6 through the air, 1 on the ground. Had over 350 yards passing. Average completion was 14.3 yards. Luis Geyer had himself a day, 172 yards, 3 touchdowns. Harley Jr., 102 yards on 6 receptions, had a tud. And then Miranda as well had 2 touchdowns, 84 yards. Frankfurt's secondary just looked like Swiss cheese this game. They started off the game with like a 70-yard bomb to Harley. He did get tracked down in that game, so it didn't result in a touchdown, but then they scored like immediately following. Luis Geyer had a long bomb of over 70 yards on a play. This was just a game of go deep and Riley will find you. And Stuttgart's offense looks like they are starting to come alive a little bit. I'm hoping that we see this trend continue into next week because in games past, there have been some reservations within the offense that I feel like some of us have noticed. They just don't seem quite as explosive. They also don't seem like they're operating out of a full playbook. This past week, though, they did. Or maybe Frankfurt just was that bad this past week. Regardless, it was good to see Stuttgart put up some big points against Frankfurt. Am hoping that the defense was bad more so because it was a new look with Wang in there, which I do want to give some flowers out to Wang as well. Wang can slang that thing. You heard me? 350 yards. Average was a little bleh. There was also quite a few dink and dunk passes that didn't go anywhere. But I did see, Wang can fit it in tight spaces. No Diddy. God, they make it too easy with these last names. I'm sorry. Between Hennessy and Wang, like I can go on for days. Wang is tiny but mighty. I gotta stop. But yeah, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have 1 interception. But, he was all over the place. Also had some really nice rushes as well. 87 yards on 12 carries. Had a 7.25 average on the ground. Was making things happen. I'm very excited to see where Wang goes moving forward. Unfortunately for Frankfurt, their playoff hopes are dead at this point. There's just too many good teams would have to lose too many games against teams that they have no business losing against. I know that there's still a statistical chance, so to speak, for Frankfurt to win or to get into the playoffs, but it's just not going to happen. But I think that, again, let's see what Wang can do. Maybe he's the quarterback of the future for this Frankfurt team. Might also just be that Stuttgart didn't have any footage on him, at least not in the ELF, and so therefore he kind of balled out. We will see. But I am excited for that. Moving on to the Färöer Enthroners visiting the Madrid Bravos. Don't really need to talk about this very long. It was a very lopsided affair. Färöer scored a bulk of their points in garbage time. It was 42-7 at the end of the third, just so everybody's clear. And then Madrid pulled a bunch of starters, and let some of the second stringers play, some of the guys who, maybe they are first string, but they get less snaps, et cetera, et cetera. So Färöer, the only reason why they put up 22, garbage time. But, is what it is, right? Reed Sinet had 226 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Lopez, the backup quarterback, had 66 yards on 2 passes and a touchdown. So, hey, I see you, Lopez. You out there hooping. Molina balled out. He had 3 touchdowns on the ground, 17 attempts, 115 yards, 6.76 average. It was, it's just not fair. With if you're playing Färöer, Cologne, or hopefully it won't be like this in the future, but Helvetic as well, you're going to win. If you're literally any other team in the ELF, you're going to win that game. So it's unfortunate to see. Hopefully that gets fixed up by next season. But yeah, that is the score of the Madrid game. I don't think that we need to talk about that a whole lot more than that. All right. Going down through the last 4 games that we have here. So the Vienna Vikings went into Paris. Now, this was a super exciting game because the owner of the New Orleans Saints was actually present for this game, as well as, I believe, some Saints players. But so, it was an opportunity for them to see what European football is really all about. And this game did not disappoint whatsoever. Gonna go ahead and highlight the winning team here. Ben Holmes, Ben VP, 3 touchdowns, did have an interception, took 2 sacks. Paris's front line was all over him. I mean, the man was running for his life, but he was making it work because it's Ben Holmes and he really doesn't crack under pressure and he stays cool, calm, and collect. And so, he did have the 1 pick. Wasn't a smart throw. He did it anyways. It ended up being fine. They won the game. But yeah, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then did have a couple of runs on the ground. His average wasn't particularly great, but he's going to be fine. White Lamar does his thing. Pajarinen had 2 touchdowns, not a particularly great average. But, ground and pound, it works. 19 attempts, 67 yards. And then Vagan also 10 attempts, 43 yards, had a touchdown himself. Yannick Mayer, 1 touchdown, 8 receptions, 134 yards. He went off. He was having a field day against Paris's secondary. But he's really the only wide receiver that truly, truly popped off against this Paris team, because this Paris team is good. They really are. And then going to the Paris side of things, Jalen Henderson also had a pretty solid day too, but didn't get the win. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did also have a rushing touchdown as well. He got sacked twice. This was, even though it was a high-scoring affair, there was a lot of defense present in this game. He got sacked twice as well. And he also had 133 yards. I didn't realize he had that many yards on the ground. Had 133 rushing yards. So in total, we're talking, what is that? I'm trying to math here. Had over 360 total yards of offense, 3 touchdowns. Had himself a day. It just wasn't enough. Austin Mitchell also had a day, 6 receptions, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he is, similar to what we saw with the Vienna side of the wide receiver room. He was the only one that made any noise for Paris, really. But yeah, this was a very, very high-scoring affair, but also there was some really good defense played too. I believe there was a pick 6 involved in this. I should really double-check that before I say things. There was not a pick 6. But yeah, Vienna comes away with the win in front of the NFL executives, the executives for the New Orleans Saints, which is, again, great for the league. We love that. So moving on to the next game of Week 9, we had the Berlin Thunder, Cologne Centurions. Do I really even have to talk about this game? Cologne got 2 points from a safety. I think it was a safety. I really couldn't tell you. I didn't watch this game. I thought that there was no need to watch this game. Was it a... I'm not even going to look it up. I don't care. They got 2 points against Berlin, which either must have come from either a safety or, blocking a punt and scoring it. I don't know. But other than that, not a very good day at the office. McCormick Reamer was sacked 4 times. Poor man was running for his life. Sullivan for Berlin had himself a day, 4 touchdowns, 252 yards, was sacked once, but did Sullivan things while he was out there. I'm not even going to waste y'all's time on this one. That feels kind of disrespectful to me. Going on to a game that actually mattered, talking about the Rhine Fire and the Nordic Storm. Now, this was the game of the week. I watched this one. This one was crazy. It really looked like, the Rhine Fire jumped out quick. They were hitting hard, had the lead at halftime, and then scored immediately following. They stopped Nordic, got the ball back, had a long drive, and, score was 24-12 about midway through the third quarter. And then One Way Jay said, hey, it's time to put the team on my back. And that's what he did, because that's what MVPs do. So I will talk about Jadrian Clark first. 304 yards, 9.8 average, 4 touchdowns. Did have 2 interceptions, including a pick 6, which was dumb. He shouldn't have thrown that ball. Not his best moment. But the Rhine Fire defense is so they just swallow you. Pause. No Diddy. But they really do. It's hard to get away from them at times. Was that not? Sorry, I'm looking up the interception. I hate that whenever you're looking up the stats from the ELF. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Intercepted by Hugo Klages. Klages? For 33 yards for a touchdown. But yeah, ball that shouldn't have been thrown. He was in the process of being sacked. He should have just taken the sack. The second interception, kind of not his fault. It was one of those Dak Prescott interceptions, gets tipped at the line, goes in the air, gets picked off. But he did what he needed to do, especially on the last drive, in order for his team to win. A couple of other folks to shout out here. My boy, Anton. Yeah, Channing. Sorry, I just love that his name is Anton, but he's white. Forgive me. I know that that's probably a cultural name out there in the Nordic countries, so I don't mean to be ignorant here. But out here in the States, Anton is a very black name, and I love that Anton was out there running. What is it that Stone Cold Steve Austin said in that movie? That's how a white man runs the football. He was out there running over dudes, 5.7 yards per carry, 97 yards. Didn't have a tud. All the tuds went to Jadrian Clark, as well as our boy Bo. Bo had a touchdown. Fones had a touchdown. Botella, and then Nielsen as well. Well-rounded wide receiver room. Bo had 127 yards receiving on 7 receptions. 18.1 average was out there. Now, a particular person that I want to highlight for this, well, there's two, but the bigger of the two, ladies and gentlemen, Dyrendal, the linebacker, number 55 for the Nordic Storm. Absolute dog. 17 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss. That man was everywhere. Okay, we're gonna talk about Dyrendal a little bit more later on, but he had himself a game. I hope y'all can't hear my dogs barking. He had himself a game, and Luke Glenna also had himself a game with 11 tackles and a pass breakup, but I prefer whenever my DBs aren't having to make a bunch of tackles. So, but he did have himself a game. And then switching on over to the Ryan Fire side of things, Jeffries, 155 yards, 1 touchdown, was sacked twice, was out there running for his life. Had some, especially down the stretch, some really good rushes. Had a touchdown on the ground as well. Did everything he possibly could. I don't even fault him for the last fumble. That is on him, but I don't think that that's necessarily that's not a Mr. Fiasco worthy play, in my opinion. Dog was doing everything that he could. The Nordic Storm, their offense is just better. But he did everything that he could. My boy Tony Anderson balled out, 12 tackles, did have a tackle for loss as well. Janssen had a pass breakup, a tackle for loss. This was just a very well-rounded game. Both teams played great. I would say that the Storm's offense played better than their defense, and I would say Ryan's defense played better than their offense. I mean, it literally came down to the last drive. It's a 1-point game. So best game of the week, definitely. I believe this one was on Amazon Prime. It was on one of the major streaming services, which is cool. It is. I know I keep beating a dead horse here by saying good for the league, but it's good for the league. It is for people to be able to see that game and be like, wow, that was a lot of fun and high quality football. Yes, that was very high quality football. But Jadrian Clark gets revenge on his old team. Ryan Fire fall to 4-4. Ooh, it's not looking too good as far as the playoff hopes for the Ryan Fire, which if we were talking about this a year ago, that would be bonkers to say. Then the last game on our docket, this one was also a really good game, a 4-point game, a shootout between the Wrocław Panthers and the Prague Lions. Let's get into this real quick. It was 41-37, again, a 4-point game. Smith had 327 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He was sacked 4 times. Wrocław's front line was everywhere, but he was making it work. Also had some good rushes on the ground, 6 carries, 59 yards, had a 9.8 average, and then also had 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. So, I mean, did everything that he could, just wasn't enough, and it happens. Willie Patterson balled out, as he does, had over 200 all-purpose yards, had 196 receiving yards, which is nuts, had a touchdown that way. And, this was a back and forth affair. If I were to, I'm trying to find the actual scoring report here. Here we go. So, Wrocław takes a big jump. They jump out 14-0. Then Afterwards, Prague inches back in. It's 14-10 at the beginning of the second quarter. Then Wroclaw jumps back out. It's 21-10. Right before halftime, Prague scores another touchdown. It's 21-16, looking like a good game. Prague scores a touchdown. It's 21-23. Prague scores another touchdown. It's 21-30 Prague. Then, Wroclaw scores 28-30. Prague scores again. It's 28-37, and it's just going into the fourth quarter. You're thinking, okay, this is probably it. Wroclaw is going to fall in this one, and then Wroclaw field goal, touchdown. And that touchdown came with 14 seconds left. And this is one of those games. It wasn't the cleanest game from DJ Irons, but he did what he needed to do to win, and he did it. Definitely deserves praise for how he played down the stretch. If he plays cleaner throughout the game and doesn't throw an interception and fumble the ball, we might be looking at a different game here. But DJ Irons, 185 yards through the air, 153 on the ground. Now, this DJ Irons is leading the league in rushing yards. Very, very Cam Newton-esque in what he's doing as far as the throwing and running portion of things. 2 tuds on the ground, 2 tuds through the air. As far as receiving, whenever you're dealing with 185 yards, it's not very notable, your wide receiver room. I do want to shout out AJ Wentland on the Prague defense, I keep getting them switched up. On the Wroclaw defense, just because he had 17 tackles. The man was flying all over the place. I like the way that Wentland hits, bro. When he hits people, he hits people. He likes to remind them, hi, my name is AJ and you fucking hate me. So I loved everything about this game. I switched this one on after the Nordic game finished, and I'm so glad that I did because I caught like the last, 3 drives. And great game. Prague Lions falling from grace where they were 4-2. Now they're 4-4. And playoffs looking a little shaky for them. Now they do have a favorable schedule down the stretch, which will be helpful for them, but it's looking a little shaky for our friends out in Prague. And then the Wroclaw Panthers moved to 5-3, and by golly, the Wroclaw Panthers might just make the playoffs, which is crazy. So good for them. All right, so that is all of the games for Week 9. Now that's going to transition us into our weekly awards. So I am pulling them up real quick. I just want to make sure that I'm pronouncing people's names here and everything correctly. So forgive me that it might take me a second. But as y'all know, we have 3 awards on this show. We have Mr. Fiasco, which is the award you don't want to win. We have the Big Dog of the Week, which means, best performance. Can also mean the most heroic performance. And then we also have the Unsung Hero. Got you pulled up. Yeah. All right. Yep. I got everybody pulled up. Now for this week, just because these games were so good, we turned it to voters. And I do have to be the bearer of bad news that I am going to be the bad guy here. I'm going to be a little bit fascist, if you will, a very American thing. I'm going to be a little bit fascist here. And I'm going to veto the vote that y'all had for Big Dog of the Week. I'm sorry. We originally, it was going to be between Ben Holmes and Riley Hennessy, either one of those two, the insiders, not just the guys at the Fourth Down Fiasco, but also like Matt Brezington, Alex Malchow, Jamal Clay, Davide, the group. Y'all know the other insiders as well. We had really thought that it was going to be between Ben and Hennessy, right? But we wanted to have a poll, and so with the poll, you feel like you need a third person. So we tossed in DJ Irons, who respectfully had a great game, respectfully did what he needed to do down the stretch. But also in terms of Big Dog, I personally try to do it based off of who had the most flawless performance, and it's hard to argue 7 touchdowns and no turnovers and 358 yards through the air. So, Riley Hennessy, congratulations, brother. I know you did not want this award. You told me you didn't want this award, but you're getting it anyways. You get to be this week's big dog. 358 yards through the air, 6 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. You did a great job. You won the shootout. Congratulations, brother. You are the big dog of the week. So, that takes us to the unsung hero. And I love that the unsung hero has slowly become a defensive player award. I'm all for it because I like to give love to the defense. And man, with all the great games, you definitely have to pick a close one, right? And so I'm going to skedaddle on over to the Nordic Storm Rhein Fire game. Can y'all guess who I'm going to pick for that? Correct! Hugo Dierendahl. Brother, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Our boy Hugo was out there hooping. Let me just pull up some stats real quick for y'all because I'm telling you, this man went nuts. Again, had the 17 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, was just all over the place. And the first half of the game, the Nordic Storm's defense looked shaky with the exception of Hugo Dierendahl. He was really the only one that was out there making plays. Now, second half of the game, there were some big key stops. Other players started making plays. We saw some from the likes of Parkinson and some other guys. Luke Glenna had some plays down the stretch as well. But this one has to go to our boy Hugo. Brother, you was out there hitting folks. You was out there chasing folks down. You did not care. You was stopping the run. You was hitting dudes on screen passes. It did not matter. You was there and you was locking it down. So love that the unsung hero award yet again goes to a defensive player, as it should. Because as much as we love stats and as much as we love to glorify the, Riley Hennessy's and Ben Holmes of the world that throw these, have these 7 touchdown games and it's super exciting and sexy on paper, right? At the end of the day, it is the guys in the trenches, the guys on the defensive side of the ball, the guys who do the dirty work that really make this thing go round. So, Hugo, congratulations, brother. You absolutely deserve it. Hugo was voted by the fans to be the unsung hero by a pretty favorable margin too. So this one I didn't feel bad about. And then lastly, we did have a tie for Mr. Fiasco. And in said tie, I'll bring up the two. So the tie was between Jeffries for the Rhein Fire and the entire secondary for the Frankfurt Galaxy. And like I said before, Jeffries didn't have a great game. He didn't have like a, eyes popping off the stat sheet type of game, but he made a lot of big, gritty plays, especially down the stretch. And I know that he fumbled on that last drive. I don't even know if there was enough time for them to score on that last drive, to be completely honest with y'all. I'm not going to give Jeffries the Mr. Fiasco award when I saw him truck guys. He's not a big guy. Jeffries is not a big dude, and I watched him truck a linebacker just so he could convert a 4th down. So Jeffries put his body on the line. I'm not going to give him the Mr. Fiasco award. Instead, we all collectively agreed as the insiders that we are going to give it to the Frankfurt Galaxy secondary because they allowed 6 touchdowns through the air. It was bad. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. Again, 358 passing yards on that secondary. And it wasn't just the 6 touchdowns. They were missing tackles. They were getting trucked. They just did not look in their element. And unfortunately for Frankfurt, the entire secondary gets it. It just is what it is. Because, the ball only touched 3 wide receivers' hands in this contest. Miranda, Harley, and Geyer. Geyer had 172. Harley had 102. Miranda had 84. Geyer had 3 touchdowns. Harley Jr. had 1. Miranda had 2. I don't know what else you want me to say. Piss poor performance. Sorry, fellas. And it sucks because they wasted one hell of a Wang performance. But yeah, so that rounds out our awards for this week. And that takes us to the last of what we have to talk about today, which is going to be our pick'ems. So I have mine for this week. I need to try and find Danny and Tanner's real fast. They should be in our group chat. This is grade A journalism over here. Absolute prime podcasting. So I have Tanner's. Oh, and of course I don't have Danny's. So sorry, Danny, since you didn't send it in the group chat, I can't talk about yours, but I can talk about me and Tanner here. So going into week 10, there are going to be some exciting matchups. I don't know if it's going to be quite as good of a week of football as week 9, but there should definitely be some really good games between these bunches. A game to look out for, the Vienna Vikings versus the Wroclaw Panthers. I still have Vienna over Wroclaw, as does Tanner. This is in Wroclaw. They are known for having really good fans. So if you're wanting to pick Wroclaw on this, I wouldn't blame you. My personal reasoning for it, I just think that Vienna, I didn't put them number 1 in my power rankings just because I like to spite Danny. But they're one hell of a team, is what I will say. Might be the best team. They're just so well-rounded. The one thing that they do struggle with, though, that we have noticed is athletic quarterbacks, which Wroclaw has probably the most athletic quarterback in the ELF, in DJ Irons. So I expect DJ to have himself a big game as long as he can keep the turnovers to a minimum. Expect for this to be a high-scoring affair. I do think that Vienna still takes this one home, though. It's really hard to bet against the Vienna Vikings. They've lost like 2 games or 1 regular season game in the past 2.5 seasons. So yeah, very hard to bet against Vienna. Next we have the Frankfurt Galaxy traveling out to Cologne. Hey, look, that boy Wang gonna sling that thing. Okay. Wang gonna be out there fitting it in tight places. Okay. And it's Cologne. They're playing against a Pee-wee football team. So Frankfurt got the easy dub on that one. I said that. Tanner said that. I imagine Danny probably also said that. Danny also probably chose Vienna too, for being honest about it, because he does love his Vienna boys and will never vote against them. I'm not going to really dive into that one. Y'all know why they go win that game. The next game on our docket, now this one should be a fun one. The Munich Ravens versus the Tyrol Raiders, Raiders Tyrol. It always throws me for a loop that they have theirs flipped. But Raiders Tyrol, and it is going to be in Tyrol. Munich, coming off of a game where there was a lot left to be desired. Their offense didn't look particularly great, even though they put up 34 points. Defense looked fine. Defense looked as you would expect against who they played. The only reason why the Enthroners scored so many points was it was all in garbage time and, a lot of second stringers out there. But I have Munich for this game. I think Tanner went... No, he went with Munich as well. Tanner was debating on going Raiders Tyrol on this one. He was really looking at the upset. I get it. I understand. They're playing in elevation. Elevation's a different beast. I still think that Munich is the better team overall. It really just comes down to how N'Kosi Perry plays. If he has a clean game, I think Raiders Tyrol might actually win this one because they're a much more desperate team than Munich. Munich is basically surefire for the playoffs. Aside from this Raiders Tyrol game, and I think one other game, they have a pretty easy schedule, or pretty favorable, at least, moving forward. They would have to something detrimental would have to happen for Munich not to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. Whereas Raiders Tirol, they're kind of in that weird in between. You know, they're 5-3. There's a lot of 5-3 and 4-4 teams right now that are duking it out for that, you know, 5th and 6th playoff spot. And so they're going to play desperate. And, you know, this is the week to capitalize, especially with Wroclaw having to play Vienna and with Paris having to play Stuttgart. You know, that's 2 of the 3 5-3 opponents that they have down the stretch that they need to do bad, right? And so they really need to capitalize on this game. I don't think that they're going to, but I think it's going to be an exciting game nonetheless. So that's our Saturday slate of games. Then moving on to Sunday, the Nordic Storm are going into Berlin to play the Thunder. You know, Berlin's 3-5. Their season's over. All of their wins have come against the true bottom of the bottom teams in the league. I think Nordic wins this one pretty handily. I don't think we need to talk about this one a ton. So that takes us to Madrid, Helvetic, another one of those games. Madrid is going into Helvetic. And now, you know, they are playing them. What is this? Didn't they play them 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? They're very familiar opponents with one another in recent weeks. And so I think Helvetic will give them their best shot. I don't think that that's going to do much. This Helvetic team is just kind of depleted, even with the new signings. You know, you almost feel bad for them because out of the, you know, them, the Enthroners, and the Centurions, they are definitely the most competitive. There is a game or two that Helvetic has lost where they could have won. But I think that they're going to be 0-8 after this upcoming week. And I think that, you know, their defense just can't stop the duo of Sinet and Cruikshank. And that's really that. You know, they're going to score some points because Madrid's defense is not good. But that's it. Rhein Fire taking on the Hamburg Sea Devils. Oh, I probably should have said Tanner is also picking Madrid in that one, obviously. Rhein Fire, Hamburg Sea Devils. Tanner chose Rhein. I'm choosing Rhein. I won't say which insider because I don't want to throw them under the bus. But there is an insider who secretly believes that Hamburg is going to win this game. Hamburg is not going to win this game. No matter how hard they try, Hamburg is not going to win this game. The Rhein Fire are mad. They have had the most unfavorable schedule. Them and arguably Paris have had the most unfavorable schedules. You know, Rhein just lost an absolute heartbreaker in Copenhagen. They gonna put belt to ass this game. Belt to ass. Because if they lose another game, their playoff hopes go bye-bye completely. So they know that. They have to win out the rest of the season to have a shot at getting the 5th or 6th, to getting a shot at the wild card, right? They gonna put belt to ass, y'all. All right, that takes us to the Paris Musketeers up against the Stuttgart Surge. Now, this is where things get a little spicy. I think this is going to be the game of the week, personally. This game's going to be nuts. It's in Stuttgart. Tanner has Paris. Can't blame him. Paris is a battle-tested team. They have had just a gnarly schedule so far, and it doesn't look like it's going to end for them. Whereas for Stuttgart, if they drop this game, they can still finish above Paris because the rest of they're going to win out after this Paris game. They have a very favorable schedule down the stretch. This is really the last hardcore opponent that they have. But I am going to choose Stuttgart, whereas Tanner chose Paris. I'm choosing Stuttgart for a couple of different reasons. The last time they played, the score was 6-0. That's not going to happen again, period. Stuttgart is not holding this Paris offense to 6 points. This Paris defense is not holding Stuttgart's offense to 0 points. Riley Hennessy is not going to get blanked again. And Paris and the likes of Jalen Henderson. Jalen Henderson is going to put up points, y'all. Hendy versus Henny is going to be crazy. The two hen dogs. Oh, I can do things with this now. This is going to be crazy. But yeah, I just think that, you know, there is a bit of a grudge maybe that Stuttgart has following that game. you know, talking to some of the players after that game, there was some embarrassment of getting blanked. It does not feel good to get blanked like that, have 0 points on the board. And that happened to them. So I think that this Stuttgart offense is going to come out swinging. And if they look anything like they did against the Galaxy, I think it's just going to be a long day for Paris. I think that their offenses are pretty equal, but I think that the Surge have a better defense, and I think that's what it boils down to. Also, it's going to be in Stuttgart, and Stuttgart has great fans, and I am a firm believer in that. And then lastly, the last game on our docket, which I wish this wasn't the last game on our docket, but it is for Week 10. The Ferencváros Throners are traveling out to Prague to face the Lions. I'm happy that the Lions are going to get their win. I think so. Tanner thinks so. I bet Danny thinks so. I just wish that this wasn't the last game of the day. You know, I wish the last game of the day would be the Paris Stuttgart game as it should be. But yeah, I think that this is going to be an incredibly lopsided affair. The Lions are going to get their lick back. They're going to be back to 5-4, and their playoff hopes are still going to be alive. So that is everything that I have for y'all. I rambled for, basically 45 minutes. That is nuts. But yeah, thanks so much for listening to the Jordan Solo pod. Sorry for the rambling. Hopefully I was equally as off the wall as Tanner. I know I wasn't, because Tanner be saying some wild shit. I be saying wild shit, but Tanner really be saying some wild shit. But yeah, I hope that y'all were at least entertained. So as always, you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Fourth Down Fiasco on Instagram. We're also at Fourth Down Fiasco on TikTok. And then we are Fourth Down _pod on Twitter. Yeah, this has been Jordan saying so long, and in Tanner's absence, hugs and kisses.
Well, I like school, and I like football, and I'm gonna keep doing them both because they make me feel good.